Welcome back. The week ahead continues. We've seen in other news now, recent outbreak of the foot and mouth disease, FMD. It's a viral infection affecting cloven-hoofed animals. It's threatening livestock and livelihoods across South Africa's agricultural sector. The disease was first detected on the 11th of April in KwaZulu-Natal, with further outbreaks later confirmed in provinces like Mpumalanga and Gauteng. Also recently in the Free State. While in Mpumalanga, the first cases were also recorded on a farm in Dr. Pixley, Isaka, Seme Local Municipality and at an abattoir in the Dipaleseng Local Municipality, and this was in June. Many local farmers have expressed concern about the foot and mouth disease on livestock, productivity, food security and income. So in light of this, the Department of Agriculture will host a high-level national foot and mouth disease Indaba, the two-day Indaba. It takes place on Monday. As well as on Tuesday, it's happening at the ARC-VIMP Campus in Roodeplaat. And obviously it comes in response to the outgoing FMD outbreaks across several provinces. Perhaps to speak more about this, the impact at large of this outbreak and the Indaba, we have agricultural economist Thabile, Nkunjana, as well as Dr. Dirk Verwoed from Karen Beef. Good afternoon to the both of you. Thank you for your time on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon to you and thanks for having us.
All right, I can see that we're just trying to get Dirk back in the line. So Thabile, I'm going to start with you. We're obviously looking at the dire situation and what currently is unfolding. Perhaps you could explain what is transpiring, the latest emerging, but also quantifying the losses across the value chain.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, the foot and mouth disease, it's proving to be a difficult disease to deal with in recent days, and as a result, the minister and the part of the stakeholders are going to be engaging in the Indaba that you just mentioned. But a part of that is also, remember from the recent budget vote that we just have, the foot and mouth disease was one of the core programs that was announced by the minister as issues that the country wants to really engage on and control, because it seems like it's getting out of control. Even though some provinces are proving better in terms of management, with two provinces now, Eastern Cape and Limpopo, to be okay for now, but it remains quite a big issue, especially in Gauteng and in KZN. As you recently also mentioned, that even Free State now has also recently announced a few days ago that the disease was also found in that province as well.
Yes, and so obviously we need to look at the strategic oversight and insight that's needed, particularly emerging through this crucial two-day Indaba. And so if we're looking at, what that actually entails in terms of key priority areas, there's the vaccination drive. Beyond that, looking at to the trade restrictions that's also, been imposed due to the imports that are no longer happening. And that's obviously also impacting price volatility and food inflation. So talk to us a little bit more about the impact on those key areas as well.
Yeah, so the one issue around prices, you remember, not so long ago, especially after the annunciation of these first outbreaks in April, there was a bit of a spike in beef prices. And I mean, this is understandable given that, once, there's an issue in terms of supply and demand, because remember, during these practices where the sector is trying to contain the disease, there has been a limitation in terms of the movement of animals, and that again it really impacted the number of slaughters across the abattoirs. So that had an issue and an impact in terms of the supply, and therefore the prices were really escalating. But as of last week, we've started beginning to sort of stabilize a little bit. And that is something that is positive. But again, this is going to take time to really, see across, the value chain where the things are settling. Because as I just mentioned earlier on, that there are still some outbreaks coming out. So that is going to remain an issue in terms of the price volatilities. And then with trade, China has always been, a key market for South Africa. I mean, for beef. And as a result, we have seen close to 30% decrease in exports for the first 5 months. That is from January to May, since, we've been experiencing things. But generally, the trade, I was just looking at the data not so long ago. It looked like things are actually good in terms of, the trade, because we've seen countries that, the likes of Saudi Arabia, Angola, they are really buying a lot of beef from South Africa, and as a result, we have seen an increase in exports, both for frozen beef and fresh beef being shipped. So, for now, as far as exports is concerned, we have not, seen this reflection from the foot and mouth disease, which is why we really need to strengthen our efforts so that we can continue to see this growth in the sector's export and, of course, the general growth in the sector at large.
Well, Thabile, thank you for setting that context and for speaking to that. Dr. Dirk, I believe you are on the line with us as well, and thank you for your time as well. You know, obviously, we're seeing this Indaba coming at a crucial time, and there's still questions across the value chain that needs to be addressed. And I wonder at this point if, people are questioning whether it should be declared a provincial or national disaster, given the widespread, given how widespread it is. Talk to us about, what you're observing from your vantage point, and even just the gaps in governance, issues of how systems are coordinated, vaccine, milk production, some of the food security issues that also could come as a result. How would you weigh in on this situation and how tiresome it is?
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and all the viewers. So it is an extremely serious situation. The red meat industry is on the verge of collapse. There is everywhere active outbreaks. The few that are reported is just the tip of the iceberg. So it's really running wild, and that's a situation that's developed over the last 5 years. And it is directly the result of the inappropriate control measures. And it's really not about the disease. The disease is very mild in itself. Cattle recover very quickly. And the strains that we deal with in Southern Africa is not comparable to what we have in the Northern Hemisphere and the UK and Brazil and so on. So we need a very much South African solution to a South African problem. And unfortunately, that's been lacking. The other sad thing is that our capacity to make vaccine has been neglected, and we're now begging for, let's say, not effective vaccines from Botswana. That's a very sad thing. If we had enough vaccine, which we should have, then not half of the problem would have been as bad as it is at the moment. So in the Indaba, a lot of emphasis will be placed on the whole vaccination strategy, and I hope that we'll find the solutions and quickly get out of that situation. Because at the moment, it's a spiral in the wrong direction, and it's a spiral of total destruction. There is no feedlot that can say they're safe, and there is no one that can say it won't happen to them. The economic destruction that we at Current Beef have experienced is enormous, and that has made a major impact on the availability of beef for the consumer and food security in general.
And Dr. Dirk, thank you for speaking to that. I mean, not to be an alarmist, but if we look at the dangers of consuming meat, obviously, that could potentially put one's life at risk. I mean, what's the reality on the ground in terms of its impact on human consumption? Even if we're looking at how places who don't want to stock red meat, what are the do's and don'ts, and what should consumers also know about, what emerges through foot and mouth disease and its impact on, the livestock and then human consumption as well?
Yeah, that's the good news. There's absolutely no risk to the consumer. This is a purely disease of ruminants, of split-hoofed animals, so pigs are included. But there's absolutely no risk to the consumer. So it's not a food safety issue at all. It is also, as I said, a very small production impact, except in the case of dairies, where it's much more severe. But it's really the control measures that disrupts the entire supply chain. And it is that supply chain issue that leads to all the economic hardships all along.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for laying those fears as well. Thabile, as an economist, I mean, we're obviously looking at the disruptions and this impact it has on investor confidence. How would you weigh in on that as well, but long-term growth overall for the sector?
Yeah, I mean, generally, this is farming is a business. So, and any issues that are, affecting its operation, it's always going to have a problem, and an impact, particularly on the farmers. And especially given that, if we are to look at the numbers, for instance, we are lower. The number of slaughtering that has been happening is over 50% lower when you compare to the previous year for the same period. That shows you that, a lot of farmers are not letting go of their products, not because they don't want to, but because of the measures that are being put in trying to control the disease. And that has implications, for their business, because especially for the cattle that are already infected. So therefore, there's an implication for the feed. They need to be fed for a period of time. And then once that gets to be prolonged, it has, cost implications for them. And so therefore, this is really an issue which I concur with what Dirk was saying in terms of it is increasingly becoming, a big issue, which is why all these efforts that are being put in place to ensure that, a lot of the problems that are emanating from it, be it food security, be it jobs, be it the revenue, and generally supporting the economy at large. Because remember, this is actually the biggest sector, and if we have to look in terms of value in the agricultural sector. So therefore, it remains quite an important one. So its operation is critically for not only the food security, but also for the jobs across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Dirk, we're looking at, Dirk, rather, we're looking at cushioning consumers as well, especially low-income households. What measures would you say needs to be put in place on that front? But even just restoring public confidence at large, right? What needs to occur on that front? Biosecurity, regulation as well. How would you like to weigh in?
Let me first concur with what's been said. It is absolutely true that this has a massive, massive impact, not only on the people that are directly involved, the primary producers and cattle owners, but also on the workers and all their dependents. There are tens of thousands of people that are affected directly through these control measures. Then, of course, through the entire value chain to the consumer. So there are certain cuts that are preferred by certain LSM groups, low-income households, like what we call the meaty bones. Now, for the first period of slaughtering after these control measures, you have to debone the entire carcass. So you throw away 20% to the weight just because you have to do that, and the extra costs involved in that whole process. You also have to discard the fifth quarter, which is the intestines, and that is again a very sought-after product for especially low-income households. So the low-income households are particularly hard hit. They do not have many alternatives. And this is where we really have to look at a national importance, say what is really important here. And this is the food security for the entire population. So exports is nice. Exports are good, and that's a nice thing to pursue, but that's not our first priority. Our first priority is to feed our own people.
Well, Dr. Dirk, Verwoed, thank you for your time. We're also going to thank Thabile Nkunjana, economist, for joining us. Of course, Dr. Dirk Verwoed is a part of Karen Beef, and Thabile is an agricultural economist, really weighing in ahead of the Indaba. It's here to tackle important issues affecting livestock, particularly in relation to the foot and mouth disease outbreak that has happened in the country. We're going to leave that conversation there. Thank you to both of them for joining us, and let's continue to monitor developments as that Indaba, of course, gets underway.